Okay, this will hopefully be one of my kind of shorter videos or tutorials. I'm sure that's my famous last words there. But today we'll go over blocks and different reusable content that you can find for AutoCAD to put in your drawings, as well as adding in hatching and dimensions and stuff. Annotation is kind of the name of the game today. So first off, if you have not already watched the first video about drawing tools and modify tools related to AutoCAD, in which we set up our foundation plan, floor plan, our elevations, as well as made a copy for our section, but we didn't do the section yet, and I promise we will do the section, not today, but we will do that one. Please X out of this video, go make sure you do those first, because if you don't have your floor plan and everything set up and ready to go, you're going to then have kind of a harder time dealing with the rest of it. So for those of you who have all of this set up, let's talk about blocks. And what are blocks? So blocks are reusable pieces of content that we can place into our drawings over and over again. And we also have lots of annotative tools that can have blocks. And we can also tag them specifically so that way they can be used as different features within our drawings. So for example, on the side here, we have lots of different tags and things preloaded into our template file. And if you double click on any of them, it opens up this thing called the Enhanced Attribute Editor, where we can edit what drawing number is being shown. So if I wanted this to be drawing 30, it then changes in here the sheet number that it's on. So if I wanted this to be sheet A302, it could change. And then any notes, maybe if I had notes that I wanted to add to it. I'll just X out of it though, because I don't want it there. Same thing then, with this drawing name, is I could double click on it and I can change the value for what is referred to as the title to be anything I wanted. I can type in there the scale that I have. I can make that whatever scale my drawing is going to be on paper. So I then can just kind of use these over and over in my drawing without have to draw this out every single time. That's going to take so much effort to put together this little box of text. Uh, like, will it take an extreme amount of effort that it's impossible to do to make 3 text boxes? No. But if I have one of them, why not just take it and reuse it over and over and over? So I can just take these little pieces here, and I can just use the copy tool. And from my last demo about site plans, my object snaps were off, so I'm just going to click on that to turn them back on. And I'm going to grab it by that part of the block, so that way I could just kind of easily reference where it's going to go. I'm going to just make it so that it sits perfectly right there. I could put it on my foundation plan. So I'm just referencing size-wise where I want it to be. Is there any rule that says it has to be there? No, but I just like organization, I guess. And so I can just put these here, and then I can easily change what the pieces of text say. So I can have this be called I'll double click, and I can change this to say foundation and framing plan. Really though, since all of these are going to ultimately go on a separate sheet, every single one of them is going to be on its own sheet when we make our final set of plans. So we are in luck that they all are going to be view 1 on that sheet. This is going to be view 1 on the sheet related to the foundation and framing plan. This is going to be view 1 for floor plans. This one, let me just double click, and I'll change this to south elevation. But they're all going to be view 1. They're all also done at 1/4 inch equals a foot. And so I just need to change the titles. And let me also just make a copy of this guy. straight down, click to place it, and I'm just going to label this. Did I spell that right? I gotta check that. Hold on. I'm not an English teacher, you guys. Longitudinal. Oh my goodness, did I do that right? Wow. This must be what the kids call a pog moment. Okay, great. I've got all those labeled. And now the other way too that I can add in all of these different um, kind of annotative blocks here would be in this insert blocks tool. So in the template file you were provided, not only were they just over here for us to kind of copy and paste around our drawing, but if I click on this word insert, there's all of them here in this. I can just kind of add in the call outs for my north arrow, for my windows, and for my wall tags. We can even see that there is a little block here that if I click on it to insert it, and then I'll just click really anywhere to place it, that has those wall types pretty much already done for us. And so isn't that nice that we don't have to actually go and draw all those little wall types in? If we just do a little bit of searching, we can find them pre-done and then load them in with little effort on our end. We still are going to have to add in some little annotative marks to it, but in the long run, that'll be okay. So the same thing with like our elevation tags, our section tags, we can start adding all of those in. I'm going to actually just add in like my windows and doors blocks for those first, and then I'll start annotating everything. Or first I'll hatch things and then I'll annotate everything as per my plan here on my piece of paper. But first we have to find some blocks to put in. So these were all blocks pre-made for us, loaded into the template, but there were no blocks here when I hit insert. There were none for windows and doors. I could create my own if I wanted to in another file and then load them in here, but the whole kind of point for at least this project is to be able to find some things and be able to get them done a little bit faster. And that is where our good friend, the internet, comes in. So there are lots of people out there doing CAD work just like you and who have already made files of windows and files of doors, and they have just put them out on the internet for you guys. And so the way to find them is to search for them. How crazy, how bizarre. So if I search for CAD blocks, and a lot of them will be purple because we were just practicing this with the high school too. We'll find a couple of websites that are really good for CAD blocks. CADblocks.net is one of my favorite ones. As a heads up, if you don't have an ad blocker on, now might be a good time to install an ad blocker because they have a crap ton of ads on their website. CADblocks.com is also pretty good. Looks like Autodesk. I didn't even know Autodesk had their own little CAD block file. Or is this just them telling us what CAD blocks are? Yeah. So CAD blocks are a named group of objects that, and we use them to make repeating content. I thought I knew they had some preloaded in their thing, but oh look, they're even saying CADblocks.net. They're giving us some places. So they've given us a couple of websites. I've never used cadforums.cz, don't know what country that is. But hey, I'm sure they've got a bunch of great ones in here. I don't know where their search bar is, which isn't great. So I'm actually not going to bother with them. See, this CAD blocks free here seems like it's actually not CAD blocks free. It seems like they have some free stuff, but they also have ones to purchase. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I'll come here and I'll just look at this file that's on sale. It looks like you get a lot in here. So you get a lot of 2D as well as 3D stuff. But you get people For plan and elevation, you get 3D people to put in your drawing. You get lots of different stairs. Like it looks like while it is 80 British pounds, I don't know what the conversion rate is. You get sinks, you get bathrooms, interior lighting, kitchen sinks, fireplaces, bathrooms, toilets. Seems like you get an office furniture, sofas. Seems like you get a lot for that $80. Um, And you know what? The fact that they are charging money for this, or even that people who upload things to these websites charge money, I personally don't see as a bad thing. If you are spending that much time modeling out 15 individual 3D toilets and you want to get paid for that, I don't think that's insane at all. Some people get all really upset that like there's money attached to them now. Um, oh, and it looks like too, you can just for $17, you can just download 10 things. So what? Uh, but so yeah, some of them are going to cost money, and it's ultimately up to you whether or not you want to pay for things like that. Would I pay $80 for that full library of 3D toilets? Probably not. Just because I don't have the need for those 3D things at all. But it also looks like they have some stuff that doesn't cost money. Nope, this one just isn't on sale. Let's go to free 2D CAD models, architectural. And so here are things that they have that are free. They have some fireplaces, some, like a table in plan for free. What is maybe a window or a cabinet, I'm not sure. A couch here, some office furniture designs. So like they do have things available for free. Some trees, some window stuff. Um, And you can, of course, always just search. I don't know where their search bar is on here. Never mind, it's right in front of my face. So if I just search for window, it will show me all of the windows that they have available, and it's telling me here which ones they have for free as well. So I can find a window and I can put it in there. You need to pay attention to what type of file it is on whatever website it might be. So these are all AutoCAD drawings. This is for Revit. So this is a 3D Revit family, which means this is not going to work with AutoCAD. So if I download it, it's pretty much just for this project a waste for me. This is Revit. This is Revit. Uh, but I can find lots of different windows. And I maybe could even find a dynamic one that I could change a couple of different little things about it with. Um, we can find windows in elevation. We can find windows in plaid. I've never really used this website before for it. Fast Track CAD also, I've never used them before. It looks like they have lots of CAD files directly associated with companies, which can be really great. Um, so then to companies will also have these CAD file blocks. So like for instance, Pillow Windows, CAD blocks. We can download directly from the company itself. So if I know exactly which window I'm using, I can go download the files for that exact window. Um, so let's say I want this one, and I want the details for a double hung one. Da, 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 product downloads. So then we have here, we've got a 2D in a section view. We've got 3D files for Revit as well as a 3D file for SketchUp. We've got 2D files for elevation. So I've got a file that I could put in here. I'm curious if this is going to be for plan as well, but we can always see. Uh, Not worth won't kill us to just download and see. Um, the website that I use the most for these blocks and that I encourage students for the most for is this cadblocks.net. Everything on there is free. It's a pretty limited library resource-wise, but it's nothing that we um, like we don't really need too much right now. So like for instance, if I go into the doors drawings, I get some doors in elevation, so doors if I'm looking at them head on, as well as doors in plan. Now I could just go and draw my door in myself, but let's say I'm feeling really lazy and I just want to just take these doors and download them in there. There's a couple of ways I could do it. I'm going to show you the way that I do it most often because to me it's the easiest way to work with it. And so this is what I mean by having an ad blocker installed, because there's usually about like 2 or 3 ads right here, and the thing you want to actually click to download is this very inconspicuous looking download link. And then it downloads it as a zip folder, which we can open and then just double click on the file itself. It'll then prompt me, do I want to just open it as a read-only file, which I'll say yes. And then it opened up a new tab at the top with all of these doors. I'm just going to pick a door that I want, which I want to go with like the plainest door I could find. I don't really like these ones that have the little gems attached to them, but it seems like that's not really an option. I'll go with this guy. I like how it doesn't open all the way. It makes it fancy to me. So I'm just going to click on the door I want, Control C, go into my file, Control V, click to place it, and oh boy howdy, this door is a little large. And chances are it's because the person who made this door or drawing did everything in millimeters. And since my thing's in feet and inches, it took those millimeters and counted them as feet. And so that's why my thing is so ginormous. And now I can use the scale tool to shrink it down and figure out the scale factor that I want it at. So when you are figuring out your scale factor, you take the number that you want and divide it by the number that you have. So for instance, if I wanted something to be 30 feet, and I currently had it at 100 feet, I would break out a calculator on my phone, but I'll just do it here so this way you can see it. I would divide 30 by 100, enter, and I get a scale factor of 0.3. So I'm going to shrink it to be 0.3 the size of what it currently is. The same thing then if I wanted to enlarge something. So if I wanted something to be 500 inches and it currently was only 6 inches, I would take the number that I want, divide it by the number that I have, and I get my scale factor. So I'm going to make it 83 times larger than what it currently is. So the first step of scaling is you have to find a current length and then determine what you want that desired length to be. So for instance, when it comes to doors, I usually scale based on this right here, based on what is the distance this way, because I typically know what I want it to be. For my door opening, I want it to be 3 feet, and then I can kind of work my way out from there. So currently, this line is a length of 75 feet, and I want 3. So if I want 3 feet, and I have 75, I believe that would be a 15th of the size, but I don't know decimal-wise what that means. But right, isn't 3 times 15? 3, whoops, I'm typing in the wrong things. 3 times 15 is 7, no, I'm wrong. But anywho, I'll do 3 divided by 75, enter, and that's my scale factor, 0.04. So I'm going to shrink it down by that number, or by that scale factor. So I'm going to highlight this whole door, go into the scale tool or keyboard shortcut SC, click a place as my base point, which isn't really going to matter. It's just a place that I'm going to scale it down by. So I'll click on it. And now it's saying to specify my scale factor. So this is where I'll type in 0.04, enter. And now my door is, and I'll delete that line and I'll just draw in a new one. It's now 3 feet wide. And so I'll show that again from the very beginning of inserting in and the whole shebang. So I'll load in rather some CAD blocks. I'll pick the one I want, Control C or Command C to copy it, go into your drawing, Control V to paste it, click somewhere to put it down. It might be very tiny and might be very big. It depends on the person who made it. Then determine how big it currently is based on something you know the desired measurement for. So with things like doors and windows, we usually know how wide we want them to be. So I'm just going to go and say that it's currently 75 and I want 3. And then I'll do the math of 3 divided by 75. Sometimes we also have to do that in inches. So sometimes I might only just see how many inches it is. And then I'll just have to do the math of, okay, well, if it's whatever 75 times 12 is, if it's 1,700 inches and I currently want 36, what's 36 divided by that number? But once you figure out your scale factor, you just highlight the whole thing you want to scale, go into the tool or keyboard shortcut SC, click somewhere to grab it by, and then for your scale factor, you'll use that number you found. So in this case, 0.04. And now I'll place a little linear dimension here. We now have a door that's 3 feet wide. Yay! We can also then take this and change its layer. We could explode it after the fact. We could do a bunch of different things to it. So I'm just going to move it based on this point and then pan myself over to my floor plan. And so since I actually want these as 2 different colors, I'm going to use the explode command. So that's X, enter. So that way I can change the layers individually on it. And I've got my door. So for my windows, I can do a similar process of finding a block I want, loading it in, and then using explode to change the layers around on it individually. Another way you can insert blocks in is usually after you do that copy paste, it usually will load in a version of it in this insert option. And so if I scroll up, here is that door. And for now, for some reason, it is a normal size. I don't exactly 1000% understand. I guess with insert, it does a conversion automatically. I don't know if this is the exact size I want though. Is this 3 feet? It seems like it's 3 feet. Oh, it's so close to 3 feet. If only. And so now let's find some windows. I could just also search for window CAD block, and I could get just kind of a little way to bypass some of the other settings and things. These are a little too fancy for me. I always tend to think that using some of the more simpler designs for yours tend to be a little bit better, so that way they don't kind of overshadow everything on your drawing. This one seems to be okay. Or you could also just use like let's just look at some of the ones from Pella or like from a company. And so I'm just going to download unit sections to see what the heck this file is. And yeah, this is just showing us in section view lots of details about it. Not really anything in plan view though, which is breaking my heart a little bit. And we can even see for elevations, So we get lots of different types of elevations. So it's saying here that my drawing is open, reference contains custom objects by an unavailable application. And I'll just say, okay. But we have some different size windows too that we can load in. We can also just shrink or scale them down for our drawing if that's what we wanted to. But I'm not going to sit here and dwell on these ones too much. What I'll do instead is find a window that I like. So here are some windows that I'm pretty okay with. You can find whatever windows you might like and load them in. And I'll find the one that I want in my drawing. I like this guy. He's kind of near the size that I need it for, and then I can always just adjust it. So I'll just click on it, Control C to copy, go into my file, Control V to paste, and then I'll say, okay, well, I need the size of my rough opening. So that's from, in this case, that's from here to here. I need that to be 3 feet wide. And it currently is 1 foot 10 and 15/30 seconds. What a convenient number. Let's make sure I measure to the right line. Which no, I didn't, so I'll move that over. Not a very more helpful number, but anywho. So I'll figure out what that is just overall in inches. So 19 divided by 32 plus 10 plus 12. And I'll write that down. So what I currently have is 22.59375. That's what I currently have. What I want is 36. So I'm going to take the number I want and divide it by what I have. 36 divided by 22.59375. Enter. And that gives me my scale factor. And honestly, it's good that this was a weird number because this is what typically you get for scale factors. You typically don't get nice even numbers. 0.99585. And then you don't have to write down necessarily every single one of these. And then I'm going to scale, click on a point to stay stationary, and then for my scale factor, I'll type in the number that they gave me. 99585, enter. And now it's 3 feet wide. If I move it into place, so I'm going to move it based on that point to here, it's a little bit too long from what I needed. And so this is where I can use the explode tool to move it into the exact size that I need it to. So I'm going to use explode, and now it's all separate line work. And I can take this part of the window, and I'm just going to move it up and adjust my window to be the size that I need it. So I'll hover over that point and I'll say, okay, move this part up here. These lines I technically really don't need. These lines I just need to use some grips and to shrink them down. These I just kind of need to move, these two lines I need to move up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is this little trick. I'm going to draw a line in between the two of them, highlight both of them and that guy, and I'm going to use the move tool to move it based on that midpoint. So if I hold shift and right click, I'll say I want the middle of it, and then shift and right click again to the midpoint of this line. So that way it's just sitting in the middle. Whoops, whoops. Delete that. And now I can start playing around with some of my layers and stuff to change the colors, which, whoops, clicking out of stuff. So I want kind of the trim, and I know this is a different design than, or a different window than the one that I put in the project. That's okay. In like the example one, it's fine. It's not against the rules to use a different window, because as long as it's a double hung window that fits in the size that I did, that's really the important part. And so I'll change these to line 4. I'll realize, uh-oh, I didn't change this guy. And I actually changed a little too many lines. That's okay. Because I want these to be that fuchsia. And so rather than drawing in like all of these window details every single time I make a drawing or make a set of plans, I can just technically not cheat. It's not cheating. It's completely allowed. But I can just go and borrow little sets. One thing here with this particular window is that really like that part of the line should probably end like here when it comes to the line weights, or rather the line colors. I'm just going to leave it as is for this one. And if you want to add into, like I've got that little shine in the practice ones, you can just go into that line 6 or in the example drawings, and you can just add in two kind of diagonal lines at just some like random length. Just kind of helps show like, oh look, it's a shiny window. Look how shiny that window is. Beautiful. And then I'll just take this guy and copy it into place all around on my elevations. So rather than draw this window out 70 times, because that would be a lot of effort, I can just copy, 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 and have that window 3 times over. Okay, and then so for like my door in elevation 2, I'll just go onto the internet and I'll search for, actually I'll do it directly from cadblocks.net just because I know they have some simple doors in there. So if I go to doors in elevation, I'll download the file, double click on it to insert it, and it's saying, hey, do you want this? It's as a read only, which it's fine because I'm just going to copy and paste it into here. I'll find a door that I like. I like to go with some of the more simpler ones just because it doesn't take too much away from it. I'll use this guy. Control copy. Go into your exercise. Control V to paste. Boy howdy, it's giant. And so then we just measure how big is it currently, which it currently is, oh, again, 75 feet. Almost like there's something with that scale factor. And then I'll click on the object itself, scale, click on a point to keep stationary, and then I remember that my scale factor was 0.04, so I'll just hit enter. we'll double check the height. So I'll make another dimension. And it turns out its height is also perfect, so I don't have to change anything with the line work for this guy. And then I'm just going to move it based on really any of these corners into place. Bada bing. And then I'll use explode to switch it over into different lines. I'm actually going to delete these ones just because I don't like to have lots of little types of lines accidentally overlapping each other. And so I personally, I'm just going to delete it. There is a way to get rid of overlapping lines like I have here, and that command is overkill. Whoops, it might help if I spell it right. You do overkill, and then you can highlight all of your stuff beforehand or after the fact. I usually will just do the whole drawing, enter, and say ignore pretty much everything. And then we can see here that 3 duplicate lines were deleted and 59 overlapping objects or segments were deleted. And so what they're probably talking about are all of these overlapping lines I had here, but I could have definitely had overlapping lines elsewhere that maybe I didn't know about. And it just went and got rid of them for me. Sometimes we've got to double check things. So like for example, here it was supposed to leave the blue line, but it left the green line instead, so I must have had overlapping ones here, and I just got to go and change it a little bit. I need that little part of it to be green, so I could use that break tool, which I can't remember if I showed you guys that or the other classes that, but that is in Modify. You could do break at point, which is somewhere in here. Here it is. In which we can say I want to break the line at that point, and now this is a separate line from this one, so I could give them different colors. What I typically would do is not that. What I typically do, I would just move the grip for this over, and then I would go into my green layer and draw a line like that. But so yeah, sometimes after you do that, you just kind of want to double check on things. See, it left this big yellow line here, not what I want. So I'm going to use the trim tool to cut that out. It joined everything up here. Not good, not ideal, not what I wanted. And so sometimes hitting that, changing some of those settings to say like, well, if they're in different layers, leave them overlapping, leave them alone. But I usually just redraw lines in if they get erased. So let's find some. I'm not going to bother putting any of them in here just because this is going to get cut into a section anyway, and so all of this stuff that would be on the outside isn't even going to be part of it. So let me, and it did a bunch of weird things here that I didn't want it to do. I'm just going to ignore that for now. And we'll find some windows in plan and then talk about hatching and adding in dimensions and the rest of the annotative stuff. So CAD block window in plan. I could draw them in myself too. I could take them from that other CAD drawing we did. These are doors. BiblioCAD is also another website I really like, but a lot of their stuff costs money. Just want like a double hung window, pretty plain double hung window in plan. And this looks like it's got a bunch of CAD blocks in plan, but this one costs money. So no thank you, I'm not starting an account with you. And that's not to, I actually have purchased things, I think from BiblioCAD before. I purchased a drawing from a project I was working on. This one's got free ones. Ooh, wonderful. Let's download. And it looks like you got to make an account, which I've got a very old account with. And let's download. You can find whatever CAD block you want. I like how they didn't spell dynamic right. I think that's cute, but also a lot of stuff on BiblioCAD, it's made by people um, typically in Spain. So a lot of the things are written in Spanish in there. See, look, Windows is in Spanish. Well, maybe that's just how you say dynamic in Spanish, and I'm just being ignorant. I'll just ignore all these things. And I'll take these windows. I might have to adjust them size-wise to fit into mine, but that's okay. So I'm going to do Control C to copy. Go into my drawing, which is, I have so many open that I've got to come here. And I can also start closing these out now that I've used them. Or some of them haven't gotten used at all. Boop. Control V to paste. And so in this scenario, my window came in and it's very, very, very tiny. So currently it is, I don't even think that's going to read as a measurement. So it's saying it's a 1/2 inch. I'm just going to double check. So yeah, it's a 1/2 inch and I want it to be 3 feet. So again, I'm going to do the math of what I want, which is 36, divided by what I have, which is 0.5. And that gives me a scale factor of 72. And so I'll highlight the whole thing, scale, click a place to grab it by, and then type in my scale factor of 72. So in this instance, I'm making it much bigger. And let me just double check. And yep, we're now 3 feet. As far as width of my window, we're actually, whoa, yay, we're very close. We are a 1/16 away from what we want it to be, which is fantastic. In all instances, I actually think I'm going to leave that exactly how it is. And I'll tell you why. And so I'm going to grab it by and copy it into place. So I'm going to highlight the whole thing, copy, CO, enter. And for my base point, I'm going to shift right click and say I want the middle of it and take it by the middle of this end and move it, shift right click, into the middle of this end. And now I can use explode to switch the different colors up. So I'm just going to switch it to line 4. Actually, I shouldn't have switched it because when I hit explode, it's going to turn it all back anyway, but I'll switch that to line 4. I'll switch all this to this goes in line 5, right? Let me just double check in the drawings. Oh no, see, I have it backwards. Good thing I checked. So this is in line 5. And all this is in line 4. Which I guess makes sense because the reason for that is these lines get progressively thinner as the numbers get larger. So this is the thickest line on your page, the next thickest, the next one, the next one. If we're cutting this window open, this right here is representing the window pane, which is right on that cut line. This is representing the window sill underneath it, which is a little bit farther out of our view. So I'm just going to highlight everything again, and I'm going to copy it again, shift right click, grab it by the middle, enter, and then pan myself over to here, shift right click, midpoint, put it in the middle, and then I'm just going to put one all over here to the side, highlight the whole thing, rotate, which is up here, or keyboard shortcut RO, enter. Doesn't really matter where I grab it by for a rotate, so I'm just going to grab it by literally nowhere in particular. Rotate it so that it's horizontal, highlight the whole thing, CO to copy, enter, shift right click, midpoint, click to grab it, shift right click, midpoint, click to place it. You can also turn midpoint on to be one of your default ones. So you can click on that little arrow and you can say, I just want you to always show me midpoints, and it will. So you don't have to shift right click. I just don't like to have too many snap points active. Not saying that 5 would be overdoing it, but the shift right click, it's a good little trick. And so now I've got my windows in here. And you could do that for so many different CAD blocks, is you can just search for whatever you're looking for, whether it's like toilet or sink or sofa. There are so many different CAD blocks out there, just like with the 3D warehouse and SketchUp. It's just sometimes the scaling is going to be off to based on what you want. And personally, I think it's worth just this having to figure out a scale factor than trying to draw some of those details out, especially when it comes to like things like maybe trees or vegetation. You could just find things online. Sometimes people will have them with money attached to them, sometimes they won't. So for instance here, it has a lot of ones with little dollar signs. If someone spent their time detailing this truck out in this grotesque, in a good way, grotesque amount of detail, and they want $5 for their effort, I don't think they're out of line asking for that. But you can, of course, find ones that don't cost money too. So cadblocks.net is the one I recommend for finding free ones. They've got lots of great stuff for you that you can use for your kind of interior details and everything else in between. And now I've got my floor plan. I'll just delete that over here. My elevation pretty much raring to go. I just have to add in some hatching details and then some dimension stuff as well. And of course do the section view, but we are going to do that section view actually next week. We're going to go over doing the section view stuff. We're going to go do a detailed wall section, as well as then how you can copy and cheat your way into here with a section. Or is it cheating if your teacher shows you how to do it? I'm not sure if it then it's cheating or learning, but anywho. So adding in your hatching, not that big of a deal, not the end of the world. I'm just going to click on Save To or Control S just to save my work so far, just because I've done a bunch of stuff and I would hate to lose it from today. So sometimes with our hatching, we may have line works and things that get in the way. I actually need to also add in a little center line here. So I'm just going to switch myself over to the grid tool, draw a line, shift right click from midpoint down, and then I'll just click on this grip to move it up. And there, it's almost like I never made that, But so for our floor plan, we want to add in solid fill hatching. In our foundation, we are going to add in pattern hatching. So we are going to use 2 different types of hatches for it. And I believe in the instruction document, so let me just pull it over to the screen here. Whoop. The hatching is described, yes. So for the wall types, this is only hatching that we're going to do in that wall type drawing, which if you insert in that block all of the hatching is done in there for us. So there's hatching for the sheathing, there's hatching for the gypsum wallboard. It's all in there in these file types or in this drawing already. Hatching for your CMUs and everything. Even the detail right down to the mortar joints. Everything is detailed in these walls for us automatically. So you don't need to worry about adding in which patterns, at what scale, at what angle are in there. For our foundation plan, we're going to use the Annopat layer, and we are going to use pattern ANSI 37 with an angle of 0 and a scale of 32. So if I try to do that right now on my foundation plan, let me just pan over here. I can definitely do it, so I'll switch my layer over to this pattern one. I'll go into the hatch tool. I'll pick my pattern out. I can keep my angle set at 0, and I can set my scale to 32. Enter. But what's going to happen is it's going to want to fill in all of the areas where it detects a closed space. So because I put my floor joist down, I have to go through and individually click in each one of these areas, especially like in here. Is this impossible to do? No, but it's a little time consuming, and our time is money. So I'm going to Control Z, and I'm going to show you how we can kind of do that a little bit faster by just temporarily disabling those lines. So clicking on that little light bulb, I can make all of those lines go away. And now when I go into the hatch tool and I say I want pattern ANSI 37 with a scale of 32, I can just fill that all in with one click rather than doing it with multiple ones. Hit escape, and I can come back and just turn those lines back on. So those lines are still there. I didn't delete them. I just temporarily hid them so that this way I didn't have to look at them anymore or look at them while I was putting my drawing together. So same thing with my floor plan. If I had things kind of in the way, I could temporarily disable them. In this case, I don't. So I'm just going to switch my layer over to this poche one, go into the hatch, and I'll use a solid fill, which gets rid of the option for scale because it's just a solid color. And I'm just going to click in just the stud area. I don't want to hatch this part, which would be my wall. I don't want to hatch the sheathing. I don't want to hatch the gypsum wallboard. Most of the time I recommend that you do things like this type of hatch as separate individual ones, and I'll explain why. So instead of going through then and like clicking this area, clicking this area, clicking this one, and this little guy, escape, all in one command, what happens is they're all now linked currently. So if I see how the whole thing gets highlighted, they're all one combined piece, which in this scenario isn't a bad thing. But let's say then I wanted to just add an extension onto here. Well, once I add that extension, I'd have to rehatch this whole area. And because I'd have to rehatch the whole thing, I would have to delete all of my hatch work, put all of my hatch work back in. And that's just adding extra steps, kind of. So what I would recommend doing instead is just hatching this wall, escape, back into the tool, hatch this wall, escape. And also I'm fairly certain I told you this, but if I hadn't before, just hitting enter right after you leave a command brings you right back into it. So I can just hatch that wall area, escape, enter to get right back into hatch, hatch that wall area, escape, enter to get right back in, hatch that wall area, escape, enter, hatch that wall area. I could also hit enter to end the command, so I could just hit enter, enter to get like right back out, right back in. And now these are all treated as individuals. And so therefore, if something happened where I was adding on a bathroom extension back here, I could just get rid of that one area hatch, fill in this bathroom part without having to redo all of these other parts. And so it could be a little way of just not having to redo as much later on. For my elevations, let's go back to the instruction document. So for a floor plan, we want um, the Anno Posh layer to do it with a solid fill. Longitudinal building section, we'll do that later. But again, this is going to be one where using hiding lines will make hatching it a lot easier. And for our elevation, we are going to use, for the siding, or we're going to use line for both of them. For the siding, we're going to do an angle of 90 with a scale of 48. And then for the roof, we'll do an angle of 90 with a scale of 24. So we just want our roof hatch to be a little bit skinnier since it's corrugated metal. And so I'll go into the hatch tool, which, oh no, I forgot to change my layer beforehand. Does that mean I have to completely start over? No siree. I can just come to that properties and say, use the pattern layer. And I'll switch my pattern to line. Which, did I pass it? I don't think so. There it is. Line with an angle of 90 and a scale of 48. Enter. And I'll just click, click, escape to end the command. And this time I will switch my layer beforehand. Go back into the hatch tool, keyboard shortcut H, or click that button, or just hit enter and it will bring you right back into it. And click, 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 which it reminds me, oh, I forgot to hatch this little area, which I'll just go back and do with this one. Even though I typically would consider that a no-no, it's better in this scenario. Which, whoops, I hit F1 instead of escape. Sorry. And I'm noticing now that it did a little weird thing when I did overkill over here. How ironic, overkill over here. And it did a weird thing here. Or did it? I don't think it did actually. Hold on. Let my dumb brain process things for a moment. No, it did. That's what I thought. So I'm just going to switch these lines up. And draw a new line in. And there might be some other little dumb lines floating around that I'll figure out. I'll hunt them down as I go. And then I've got to add my roof hatching over here. So I'll switch my layer back to this pattern one. I'll go into the hatch tool. I'm already in line. I've already got an angle of 90. This time I just need to change my scale to 24 so that way I get some thinner lines. I'm not going to hatch this though. I don't want to hatch that area. So I just want it on that one to show that there's corrugated metal going on the roof. Last thing then for today is just to kind of talk about some of these annotations and stuff and dimensions. And so some of those things are things that we can just add in from right over here. So for example, like with the north arrow, I can just take it from here and copy it onto my plans. I only want to put a north arrow, and I'm just going to be a little extra and like line it up with some features. Maybe if you wanted to line it up with like that, whatever, that's fine. But you also only want to put north arrows on views that are plan views. So your foundation plan, your floor plan. In an elevation view or a section view, you should not have a north arrow. Site plan, sure, something where you're looking from an aerial view and you can see all four cardinal directions, like you're looking down at a map. Since I'm looking at the east side of this building, north is not what I'm interested in. I can't see north. And so sometimes I see students just take north arrows and just spam them onto every single drawing because they think it's supposed to go on every drawing. It only goes on views that are plans. So I only want a north arrow on those two of them. Like my room tags, I can just take them in here, copy, put one here, and then I'll just try my best to kind of line them up. Another one in here. I wouldn't tag anything in my foundation plan. I would in my section, but I don't have my section yet. And then we can just double click on these to label them, and we can name them like bedroom or workroom or room 1. I'm just going to name this one room 1 and double click on this guy. Room 2. Okay. Then for my elevation and my section tag, I'm going to wait to put those in just because I want to put my dimensions in first. So that way they're not competing or clashing with any of my dimension stuff. I could use these door tags or use the text tool. So I'll just go into door tag, copy, okay, and place it one here, another one right here. Typically I'd have it centered, but I just don't want it sitting on that center line. And I'll just double click on it. So I'll say that this is door type 2, and for its value, I'll just type in the way I like to tag of that 3068, because these are technically two different types of doors. And I'll leave this one as door type 1, 3 feet wide, 6 foot 8 inches tall. Same thing with my windows, is I can just take this initial one, copy it, and actually what I'm going to do is before I copy it everywhere, I'm going to put this text in of 3 feet wide and what is it, 4 foot 8? I'm 99% sure. Purely because every one of these windows is the exact same window type. And so rather than typing this in every single time, I can just tag all of the windows at once. I'm going to put that one there so I can rotate it. And then I'll use rotate. Rather than type that in 30, not 30 times, that'd be a little much, but rather than type that in every single time, RO, enter, click somewhere to grab it by, and then spin it around. And then I can even click on these grips to move it. But yeah, rather than type that in so many times, I could just type it in once and then copy it around. For my wall types, I'll just copy. Now you want this little white line here, that should be kind of sunk in the wall type itself. So I'm just going to kind of line it up so that way it goes through like that. Wall type here. And then, really I just kind of only need the two of them. Copy, just because we aren't making that change. And I'll just put it over here for now. Rotate, click on my object, spin it, and that's just me moving my mouse towards a direction. And then I'll use the move command to just plant this in the wall. Wall type A. This is wall type B. Might help if I put caps lock on. And then I'll copy this over into my foundation plan. I don't want it snapping to that mid though. That's a little. And then double click. And this is wall type B. Right? A, C, and D. My bad. So I'll just double click. C. And wow, we were able to change it and the world didn't end. Now, adding in your dimensions is you're just going to make sure you are in the dim layer, and you can use this quick dimension tool here. I really dislike quick dimension, and I'll explain why. I prefer to use the linear dimension tool, just because that way I can guarantee my lines are going to be straight. Now, by default, your dimension style should be changed to the correct style. You can check on that by typing in the command dimsty, enter, and you want your dimension style to be DJM48. So that just means that our dimensions are going to be scaled up and actually visible in our drawing. If you are set by default to this standard option, what's going to happen is you are going to have numbers that are the tiniest number in existence and also written as decimal point inches. Not what you want, not ideal. And so that, to check what it's set at, you just need dimsty and you want DJM48. And you can switch between them by double clicking on it here, or clicking on it and saying set to current, or right clicking and saying set current. And so what this has done is it's changed, and I'm pretty sure I went over this last time we did this project, but it's just changed our text height to be an actual legible size. It's changed the symbols and arrows that our drawings uses. It changes the way that our text fits on our lines to the way that we would want for architectural drawings. So the reason why I don't like this quick dimension tool is, one, it tries to hover over lines and guess what you want to dimension, which in this case, if I click here, I don't want a dimension telling me that this yellow line is 18 feet and 7 1/4. But it also tends to do aligned dimensions instead of linear dimensions. And I can rarely think of times when I've used aligned over linear. And that kind of just irks me. So what that means is aligned dimensions would go from, let's say, 1 point here to then, if I wanted to measure to like where this was, it would just put it on that angle aligned with it. And then if I move my mouse over, it'll show me it linear. But I just really dislike the fact that it just doesn't do linear by default, and that it always is trying to guess what I want to dimension instead of just letting me tell it. So you could just use this dimension tool and click that you want to go from like 1 point here. So I want to measure from the face of the stud, and then I'll zoom in on this side, to the face of the stud, and then click outward to place it. And it gives me exactly what I intended for. But I personally just prefer to use this linear tool because it gives me a little bit more freedom of saying like, okay, well, I want to go from here to the middle of this, and it automatically will measure it just as if it was straight up, and then I can click to place it. And furthermore, with these dimensions, you can also change these grips around, and those numbers adjust automatically. So I can just move this grip to actually be up here instead of buried into my wall. I can still have it where it says 12 feet, 24 feet, and even then, if I go into the dimension tool I can measure from the face of the stud to this part, and if I click on that endpoint, I can have it where these two are nice and aligned with each other, just like I want them to be. And so maybe I want to put this 12-foot one down here. If that's what I want to do, then that's what I want to do. So I can just do another linear dimension from face of stud. And this might be a scenario where having that midpoint snap on by default is helpful. And so again, that's just clicking here and switching yourself over to midpoint. So that way it can kind of just measure how far over something is. Should I put that window in the wrong spot? Here he is. Da, da, da. Well, actually, I don't think I did. I think I'm going to be okay. Because I'm pretty sure how I dimension this one is just from middle to middle. With then, whoops, with then a singular dimension from outside to middle. There we go. And then another dimension from outside to middle, which I don't want that going all the way through, so I can just click on that grip and move it. You want to be careful that you're still keeping it lined up, because if I move it slightly, that number is going to change. And I'll let you know now that yes, you can change what these numbers say. So I can, and I honestly should also move this because that's getting a little... Can I mirror that, I wonder? I should be able to, right? Yeah. Yes, let's erase the source. Here we go. That's just a little friendlier to read. I'm going to move that one over too. But anyhow, you can change what these texts say. So you could double click on this and you can change it to say 100, 1,006 feet. You can delete whatever currently is there and make it say whatever you want. And so I do tend to every semester, and at the high school and at ASU, every semester I have kids who are like, oh, I didn't do that at the right size, but I'm just going to change it and she'll never know. I'm going to know because I do go check your measurements. So what I would suggest instead is see what you have wrong. Maybe it is just you didn't measure from the face of stud. I had one student last semester who they changed every measurement because everything was reading wrong, but they actually measured everything from the outside of their wall, which is why everything was reading as too large. So she did everything correct, but she thought she did it wrong and she was going to try to fake me out. And I was just like, no, you actually just placed the dimension wrong. You didn't do your drawing wrong, which was the good news at least. But now I've gone on a tangent again. And so I'm just going to place some dimensions around. So that's why I like the linear one, is because it makes it way easier to just take your measurement from one point to another point and automatically have it be straight out. The other rules that we still typically apply to dimensions would apply here. Like we want the larger dimensions, our overall one should be outside of our building. And then our interior ones, I personally would group dimensions towards a side of the building as well. So actually maybe make that a little further out. But like since I already have these ones over here, adding in the dimensions then for like how far out is our stoop, which I measured too far. Whoops. Boop. And then like how far out our steps are, I might have to move my north arrow over a bit. That's just fine. Having all of those things grouped towards one side makes it at least then that all of the information can be found in more of a singular space than all over the place. Same thing with, our foundation plan, adding in our elevations, or rather our spot elevations, which is just another tag that we can find over here, or we can use the insert tool. And so I'll take this one and I'll copy it and we want, one at the ground line, then or do we have one at the ground line? I don't know. I know we have one at the top of the floor, and we have one at the ceiling height, the base of our windows, which this one's going to be a little hard to get lined up with. See, the tricky thing with these snap things here is that they always have to be like visible, and the minute you pan, they tend to go away. But the other thing you can do is just draw a line over to see like where exactly they're going to be placed, and then work your way from there. So we don't have one at the top of the floor. Weird, interesting. And then we can just double click on these and say finish grade. Whoops, I put that as the height. So the height actually is -1 foot dash 2 inches. And its description is finish grade. It would help if I can type. And then we have at 2 foot, we have the bottom of window, and then double click again, 6'8", the top of window and door. And for this one, I'm actually just going to leave it at top of plate and just delete that little note. And I could also too just take all of these that I put and copy them right flat over for here rather than retype all of them out. And same thing for my section as well. I'm going to have a couple of different ones that I'll add in for my section, but I'm just going to copy them based on finished grade and move them so that they're right there. Like I said, with the section, we're going to have some things added in. So for the section, rather than finished grade, we're going to have the top of the footing. We'll have the top of the wall over on this side as well. So some of these will go away, some of them will stay, but rather than doing all of them again, I can have them started. For my floor plan, there's definitely more dimensions that I'm gonna need to add. Not really an incredible amount of extra dimensions that I'll need to add, but still just a few. Like I don't have one for like this door or this window. So I can add some dimensions in, but I would assume once you've placed a few of them, you've got the gist of it and you don't need me to videotape myself walking through them. The same things then with these tags here, like for our section view and our elevation view. So we're just going to take these, copy them into place. So remember, why did it only copy that and not the whole tag? Who knows? Let me just highlight the whole thing. Copy. Is that because we're only drawing whoops, I did the tag on the wrong side. Because we're only drawing the south elevation and the west elevation, there's no need to put tags all around the house. There will be extra credit options to do the north elevation and the east one. And so if you do those, you should include the tags. But if I only have these two, let me rotate it. There's no point in making tags for the rest of it. So highlight the whole thing, rotate. That way it's facing the building. And I'm going to change this one to say 202, but it still is going to be view 1, and this will be view 1 on sheet A201. And then I'll add in my section marker. So I'm just going to copy this to be over here. And then copy the little tail piece to be in line with over here. So our section cut is going to cut right through our building longitudinally, right through here. And while I'm in the Anno layer, I'll just add in a little part of the section line that should be going here to show that this is a section, not an elevation. And I'm personally just going to move mine a little bit closer to the drawing, just because it was a little too far out for my liking. And I'll move both of these closer in too. So then we've got our hatching, we've got a lot of our annotation done. We've still got some annotation to add to our foundation and our floor plan. We've still got some dimensions to add to our elevation view. We've still got our section view to done, but we'll start on that next week. And you can continue to work on this project, of course. Give me progress updates. Only a few of you did that. If you don't have any progress updates to show me, not the end of the world. You do have until the 29th to get it done, but that day is coming up, and you can get feedback on your project as you work on it for no point penalty at all. So please make sure you're getting it done, because this is worth a big hefty chunk of your grade, this project. Make sure you're working on your progress stuff. Make sure you email me if you have any questions. Make sure you call your mom, because if she's anything like mine, she's probably ticked off that you haven't called her in a while. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.